Hello everyone, my name is Eric. I'm a medical student at the University of Melbourne. In this video, I want to share 3 books that I loved reading over September 2020. For each one, I'll give a brief overview and throw in some quotes along the way. Timestamps will be in the description as usual. Let's get started. The first book in this list is A Velocity of Being, edited by Maria Popova and Claudia Bedrick. This book isn't your conventional novel or non-fiction book in that it's actually a collection of letters written by a very diverse group of people around the world. Some of these people include content creators such as Elaine de Botton at the School of Life, businessmen such as Richard Branson, and also musicians such as Yo-Yo Ma. Despite all these different backgrounds, what unites them all is this very passionate love of reading. And so then that's what this book is about. All of these individuals have written a short letter directed to young readers all across the world. And none of these letters are the same. Some of them talk about reading as an antidote to escape the harshness of life, whereas others talk about reading as kind of a powerful insight into glimpses of reality. One of my favorite letters comes from the writer Neil Gaiman, and I'll just read a short excerpt of what he has. So he writes, "Dear person reading this, a writer can fit the whole world inside a book. Really, you can go there. You can learn things while you're away. You can bring them back to the world you normally live in. You can look out of another person's eyes, think their thoughts, think about what they care about. You can fly. You can travel to the stars. You can be a monster or a wizard or a god. You can be a girl. You can be a boy. Books give you worlds of infinite possibility. All you have to do is be interested enough to read that first page. Somewhere there is a book written just for you. It will fit your mind like a glove fits your hand, and it's waiting. Go and look for it." Neil Gaiman. Each letter in this book contains like a corresponding drawing that comes with it, which is really cool. So for example, the one by Neil Gaiman has this artist involved here. And I thought this was nice. So like, as well as, I think there's about like over 100 different writers in here. And so that means there's also 100 different artists that are also on show. And it's nice to see like different styles accompanying different artists as you go. So yeah, that's the first book of this list. I've personally been really impacted by a lot of some of these letters. And I know this is a book that I'll be turning to in the future to be reminded, I guess, about the power and potency of literature. So yeah, that's the first book in this list. A Velocity of Being, edited by Maria Popova and Claudia Bedrick. The second book in this list is Keep Going by Kleon. Now, Easton is one of my favorite non-fiction authors, and he's previously written 2 books called Still Like an Artist and Show Your Work. I kind of see Keep Going as a finale to these 3 books. And what I mean by this is Still Like an Artist more talked about how creativity begins and how it's really quite accessible to everyone. On the other hand, Show Your Work more talked about reasons why someone should show their work and how to get discovered in the modern age. Finally, Keep Going is a manual on how to stay creative in both good and bad times. And acts as kind of a nice conclusion to Easton's creative philosophy. So Keep Going offers 10 tips in terms of how you can stay creative, and I can say that a lot of these tips I've really instilled into my own life and have been quite transformative. I just want to share one, which was tip number 3, which is forget the noun, do the verb. And what Easton means by this is it can be very easy to get caught up in titles. So ideas like being a creative or being a student or being a painter. Instead, the danger with these titles is that it can make life very binary and restrictive. I mean, the world suddenly gets divided into creatives and non-creatives and painters and non-painters. Instead, Easton argues that we should more focus on what we are doing in any present moment rather than getting too caught up in the titles. Indeed, he writes, "Job titles can mess you up. Job titles, if taken too seriously, will make you feel like you need to work in a way that benefits the title, not the way that fits the actual work. Job titles can also restrict the kinds of work that you feel like you can do. If you only consider yourself a painter, then what happens if you want to try out writing? If you only consider yourself a filmmaker, what happens if you want to try out sculpting?" And this argument I thought was quite compelling for me, as someone who tends to put quite a lot of emphasis into the titles people have. This message was quite confronting, but something that I believe to be quite true. So yeah, this was Keep Going by Easton Kleon. I'd personally recommend this book to anyone who's remotely, does anything creative, whether that's being into photography, like food Instagram accounts, or just anything in general. I think some of these tips can really change the way you approach things and view things. So yeah, that's the second book of this list, Keep Going by Easton Kleon. The third book of this list is The Prophet, which is a short fiction book containing 26 poems written by the Lebanese poet Kahlil Gibran. So the overall synopsis of this book is that there is a prophet called Al-Musfasa who has lived in the city of Orphalese for 12 years and is about to head back to his hometown. Before he leaves, he's stopped by many groups of people in the town of Orphalese who ask him questions about many different areas of life, such as on crime and punishment, on marriage, and on children. His responses are in the forms of these 26 poetry fables, of which there are some really beautiful imagery and of which there are some really interesting and profound ideas. One of my personal favorites is on children, of which I'll just quickly read an excerpt. So it begins with the context. And a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you." And so what I understood from this is that sometimes it's good to let things go and to let things grow just beyond your immediate reach. And as someone who's tended to be quite neurotic and who's tended to exert quite a lot of control over their lives, I personally found this message to be a little bit confronting, but I think there is quite a bit of truth involved in here. So yeah, this book has been translated into over 100 different languages, and I would personally recommend this book to anyone who's interested in very short reads and who's just really looking for some really beautiful ideas in writing. So yeah, that's the third book of this list, The Prophet by Kahlil Gibran. One of the key themes that I've taken away from reading this month is this notion of how books can change paradigms. That in ordinary day-to-day life, it can be difficult to come across opportunities where one can really question some of the worldviews that they've been handed or have been raised with. However, books provide a very convenient antidote to this, whether it's non-fiction books such as Keep Going, which illustrate the pursuit of art in a very liberating and fun manner, or whether it's more spiritual and philosophical books like The Prophet, which talk about many sensitive and relatable areas of life. There is something in these books that anyone can take away, and something which provides opportunities for people to really question some of the views that they've held for a while. And I know that throughout this month, a lot of these notions on like creativity and children and art have really been challenged, and it's something that I'm very, very grateful for. So yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of this video. If you liked it, please leave a comment with some book recommendations or any other video ideas. This is a lot of fun, and I hope to be reading more in the future as well. So yeah, that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.